Many people dream of moving back to Africa, but fear and doubt hold them back. I often get asked, you moved at such a young age and you weren't even born there. How did you do it? The truth is, I simply trusted myself. And today I want to talk about how I built that confidence to trust myself this much to make such a move possible. And I hope this will help you, that you can build the confidence for yourself to make such a move for yourself. I'm Marvin, and 2 years ago I made the decision to move from Germany to Kenya at just 23. Since then I've been exploring different parts of the African continent, sharing my journey here on this channel with you. I hope this video will help you to gain the confidence and start trusting yourself to make such a move possible. So now let's dive into the topic and let me tell you how I built this trust. Of course, moving to Africa took a lot of time, research, energy, and also finances. But beyond all that, I would say the most important thing I needed was trust in myself. Trust that this is the right decision, trust that I can manage all the challenges that will come towards me, and trust that I would just make everything work. And without this self-trust, I would have never been able to share my story with you of my journey moving to the African continent, and specifically here right now to Kenya. To make things a bit clearer, let me give you a little bit of a backstory about myself. I was born and raised in Germany, but I had my roots in Eritrea. And growing up there, I often got caught up in two different worlds because the Germans never fully accept you as a German, and some Africans didn't see me as a full African as well. So oftentimes it was a struggle for me to find my own identity, to feel sense of belonging for a certain group, to see where I can fit in. And over time, I understood that it's not about how people's perception of me is, it was more about how I just feel about myself. And once I understood this, I started to dig into my family a little bit more, how their journey was, the reasons they came, and how life for them was actually in Germany after leaving their home country in Eritrea. And even after they moved, they still had the dream of going back to the African continent. And because of them, I got the inspiration to look into this myself, if there's a possibility to do something for me on the continent. And so I visited Uganda when I was 19 for the first time, where I spent, I think, 10 days, but I was still in high school, so I did not have the perspective I had a few years later when I went back. But still, this time already gave me an idea of how Africa looks, of what kind of possibilities there are, of the feeling that I felt just by being there and like talking to the people there on the ground, visiting my family over there. And then I went back 2 years later when I had a different perspective at 21, where I already was a bit more experienced living abroad, when I had more work experience because I was working since I'm 15 actually, so I had a lot of time to gain experiences, see things with a different perspective. So when I went back there, I had a very different eye for things. And I had, of course, therefore also very different conversations than I had the very first time I was there, because I saw the continent already with different eyes. And I also felt much more confident already in the person I am, because I had some more time to talk to people, to have conversations that helped me to grow. And then there was one specific conversation I had with one of my relatives that lives in Uganda, and also flew from Eritrea with very, very limited resources. And he taught me about his journey, how he started, what he had, and the resource he had to start something and to build his own life. And just the idea and vision he had when he was around 15, that he said to my family that he will make it either way. And after having this conversation with him, to understand that you don't actually need many resources to build something, to sustain yourself, to build wealth, you just need to have a very, very deep trust in yourself and need clarity on what you actually want in life. So after this conversation, I really started thinking much deeper. I started evaluating the things I want to do, and I was like, hey, I don't want to stay in Germany anymore, and I feel somehow drawn to the African continent. So what are the possibilities for me? What are the things I could do there to build myself and to live my life in a more fulfilling way on the continent, to explore opportunities, to understand myself more, and just to get a different perspective on life while spending some time on the continent. And actually, after this conversation was the first time I even thought about moving. Before that, I went to Uganda just to see things again with different eyes, just to accompany my family that wanted to go there, to travel there, to see things as well, and to check out some possibilities. But I didn't even think about it. But after spending this time there, after having these conversations there, this was when I first had this thought even of moving there. And then when I went back to Germany, I saw things with different eyes, with a different perspective. I was looking at the things I was doing. I was very happy. I was learning a lot. I was growing a lot. So I couldn't complain about things, but still I felt that there needs to be a deeper sense in the things I do. So I started looking into different places I could move to in Africa. And of course, Uganda was one option because of the family I have there. but somehow I felt more drawn to Kenya. Kenya was just a country that I saw back then for the very first time with like a different perspective as well, and looked into Kenya's development. I started to understand that this could be a very, very interesting chance for me to just explore myself, to build something meaningful, and at least to try something new for myself, and maybe finding deeper connections to my roots. So then I started visiting Kenya for the first time. I think it was 8 months or something later in 2022, and I had so many conversations with people. I tried to see as many things as possible in the time I was there, tried to have meetings with as many people as possible to really understand how life on the ground is. But then the real work was also very much internal. It was, of course, about researching, meeting people. When I visited Kenya for the first time, I got so much insight, so many insights. I met so many people from different industries, so I understood how Kenya works a little bit, at least in these 2 weeks. But I think the biggest part was to work on myself internally, to really understand that I can do it, because I found out that there are many new challenges I didn't even thought about while staying in Germany, because you don't have to think about moving to a different country. So you see things very different. You can just do whatever you want to, but in Kenya you need to go through different hurdles, different challenges, a different mentality. You need to figure out everything from scratch. So at some point I started to see that I really need to believe in myself to make this thing possible. Because the thing is, not everybody understood my decision to move to Kenya. And this is very different compared to the situation when I was about to move to the States for a year. Everybody was so supportive. Everybody was like, yeah, do it. It's a great thing for you. But moving to Africa raised many, many questions, and people didn't always understand myself. So I had to trust into my own decision, basically. And this made me also much stronger to, over time, to see that people will not always be on your side. It helped me to be sure about the things I really want, you know, because there are many people, many relatives that always want the best for you, many friends as well, but they just don't see things from the same perspective that you have. So you need to be clear about what you actually want. And this is what I had to do first. But then of course I also had like a lot of support from my family, at least. Friends all didn't always understand this decision, but like my family came from Africa as well, so they understood. They knew that there are different things to do on the continent. They saw different examples of our family that didn't move to Europe or the West, that stayed in the continent and made things possible and made things work. So I actually had a lot of support from my family as well, and especially my dad. He pushed me always to do the most and to try all the things out I want to do, and like just to try different things, and especially moving to the continent. And in this case it was Kenya for me. It was like, do it. The worst thing that could happen to you is that you just come back, continue working here, and life would just go on as normal. And especially this support gave me a lot of strength in the beginning, until I understood that I have to make my own decision, and that I will be sure that I will make things possible and make things work, you know. I often had the case where people were like, hey, why do you go there now? Why don't you just make money first here in Germany or somewhere in Europe, and then you can think about moving there when you have some more money? And in the beginning I was like thinking about it even, and after a while I understood. The more I researched, the more I learned, the more I felt a sense of gut feeling that told me this is the right thing for you to do. Then I was just sure about it, and could just not let these thoughts sink into deep to myself. So it took me a while to understand these things. I was sure from the beginning, but if you're new to these thoughts and you think of it and you think of doing it, of course you will always have some questions coming up, and people who don't have made the same experience as you did, they will not exactly understand, so they will project their doubts onto you, and this can make you weak if you're not really strong and sure and trusting yourself that this decision is the right thing for you, just because the other ones wouldn't do the same thing. Because I also understand that it's not always easy to trust in yourself, and like to have doubts here and there is completely normal. I tell you something about myself. When I was like in the age of 15, 16, 17, I was also not really confident, to be honest. I couldn't, of course, I would have never thought about speaking to a camera. I was also quiet in group conversations. I was quiet in class. I was quiet when I was doing different things and meeting new people. So I was very, very shy back then. But luckily I started working when I was 15, and from there I continuously developed more character strength. So I had the chance to speak to many different people while working, and just learned that I have skills outside of school that showed me that I'm actually maybe not the best person in school, but that I have different abilities that people in school didn't have. So this gave me also strength over time. And the more I did this, the more I experienced, the more I did different things, the more I traveled and had all these different conversations with people from all walks of life, I understood that things are not always linear and that people are actually also always struggling with something. I met so many amazing people that did the things I could never imagine to do when I was younger, and now I see everything is possible. But from meeting these people and having honest conversations with them, I always asked them very straightforward questions and was like, hey, you somehow give me an interesting sense of character, so let me just ask you one or two questions about, like, what do you think is the most important thing in life? What is the thing you struggle the most with? And after I received all these answers, I saw that each and everyone has these struggles. Each and everyone has a problem in their life. Each and everyone has doubt and fears. So this is what helped me to understand that even people you look so up to and you think they're so unreachable for you went through struggles to get where they are, and even now having the same struggles as you do. And all these words helped me to keep a clear mind when I was ready to make this move, when I was ready to take on things, when I stepped the first time on the African soil here in Kenya for good. So all these people, they helped me along my way to figure things out. And I would say without these conversations I had, without these trips I made to meet these people, I would have never been this confident to say like, hey, I'm 23 now and it's time to move to Africa right now. So now looking back at all these things that shaped me and like made me this confident to make this move happen and to explore all these things I did here on the continent, I would say it's really just get out there, trust in your own abilities, and do as many things as possible where you think, wow, I could never do this, and just do it. If I give you another example, I would have never thought of myself being in front of the camera maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And when I started for the first time, I felt awkward. I didn't know if it was the right thing for me because I thought I'm more the behind the scenes person. But at some point when I started making these videos, I saw more and more and more how this is fulfilling me to share my own story, and that it fulfills me to give you my advice and the things I've learned along the way, that I feel so comfortable now in front of the camera. And this was something I never thought of doing. Never. I could never imagine doing this. So looking back, simply do the things you think you cannot do and show yourself that you can actually do them. And the more you do this, the more you will understand to trust yourself, because you know that everything you do is achievable, that everything you do is possible, and that everything you want to do, that you really, really want to do, is not very far away of doing these things for you. When I started creating content, for instance, or like started to make my move, I never thought I would meet these amazing people from all over the world here in Kenya that helped me grow even further. And I just did. When I started making content, I never expected for myself to be a big person or to grow very far. I just did it for the sole purpose of just doing it because I wanted to do. Because I wanted to share my journey, because I wanted to get in front of the camera, because I wanted to leave my comfort zone. So leave your comfort zone as many, many times as possible. Do the things you think you cannot do, and at some point you will start to understand and realize that you actually can do anything you want. So all these things I just said are mainly just to say, if you have the dream of moving to the African continent, if you have another big dream that you're wanting to pursue but you didn't do it yet because something is holding you back, or you think you cannot do this, or you have fears and doubts of how it will turn out, simply try to do it. And another learning I made over the past years, and especially since I moved here, is that you will only know if you're ready for something if you actually do it. Otherwise you will always keep thinking, you will always be in your head and be thinking if this is the right thing to do or not. And if this is not enough for you, think about different things you had fear of, you doubted to do, and then in the end you did them. And then tell me, how was the feeling after you actually did it? Was it this bad as you imagined, or was it much easier for you than you thought it is? So I hope this video helped you to build the confidence to move to the African continent and just to pursue your own dreams. I wish you all the best, and please drop in the comments down below what you are dreaming of but you're fearing and doubting yourself to do. And let me know when you made it happen, because I know you can do anything you want. And here are also some other videos about my journey moving to Africa and specifically to Kenya. You can check them out, watch them, and see you in the next video.